I'm Dianne Barrett. I'm here with Lindsay Rouse for the coming out experience of the VE collection. It is March 17th, 2023, St. Patrick's Day, and Lindsay has agreed to listen and consent to open up to my own expression of my coming out experience. So thank you.
You're welcome. Absolutely. I'm glad and pleased to be in this position. And I welcome you to start your telling.
Thank you. I thought about it. I thought, I remember you interviewed me for the first part of the collection, which I appreciated. And at that time, I talked about my experience as a first grader and signing up to go to the reading chairs. I went to a Catholic school. And I sat on these very small chairs, and the nun who ran the classroom was bending over us, talking about reading and books. I didn't hear a word she said about reading and books, but I recognized that under that thing, she didn't have anything on but her dress, and I could see this huge, magnificent cleavage. And so I became a very good reader. I volunteered all the time if the opportunity presented itself. And to this day, I like books. But it was then I knew that I shouldn't talk about it.
Yeah.
I mean, where did I hear that?
Yeah.
Thinking like I was from this huge family that talked about this and that. I wasn't. Certainly in those years, it wasn't on the news and that I knew about.
Yeah. And
I knew to keep it a secret. And then in my thinking, I always wanted to have a best girlfriend all through school. And I think probably when I was in the second grade, I developed a friendship like that. But that best girlfriend, the bonding of that, knowing somebody was sort of there for me and I could tell my stuff to, and was important. Mm-hmm. But nothing of those was sexual. It was just, I trusted my girlfriends. And every year, I've changed schools once in a while. I would have to have another girlfriend. And that was really important to me when I went to high school, that I was going from a Catholic school to a public school, very large public school in Chicago. And I was left out because I didn't know any of the girls that transferred from the public school. From the, so I was like stricken. I broke out in a rash. The pediatrician said I was stressed. I didn't know what that was, but I thought, well, that's what it. It's all these red and white things on my arms. And nobody knew what to do about that. But I think just hearing that what happened to me was okay, I wasn't going to die from it, was probably all right. My mother said, okay. My poor mother. Anyway. So I loved to go to pajama parties when I was in high school. It was a big massage opportunity. I didn't sleep, of course, but the parties were huge. Probably 20 girls to a party. And you had pizza and the lights out and the massages started. And I wasn't the only one, but I was not a recipient. I made sure that I was the giver. And I didn't know shit about how to do a massage, but I watched and I learned, and it was easy. And I enjoyed it. But I never talked to the person afterwards. It wasn't necessarily a good friend. It was just, there were all these girls and we were swimmers and we were this, and hanging out together. So when I went to nurses training, this is funny, we'll cut this out, but the first day of nurses training, my mother drove me to the school. It was raining. I got out of the car. I had this great raincoat on. It had butterflies inside of it, butterflies on the collar. And I fell on the curb into this big splat of a puddle. And it was just so humiliating and embarrassing. And I had this beautiful dress on that I'm sure I looked hot. But we go into the dormitory. I get assigned to my room. And across from my room is Maggie Maxwell and her mother. And they're decorating like Ellen's mother did. Right. And my mother, being very frugal, I said a bedspread, some plain drapes that I didn't pick out. And that was about it, alarm clock. But Maggie's, I thought, wow, she had ruffles on the curtains. I mean, it was a big endeavor. And I also found out that Maggie's mother ironed her underwear, and something that I had never had exposure to. And she also ironed her bras. You know, bras in those days were sort of stiff. And so she ironed the points. So, this is perfection to me. I mean, Maggie and I did become friends, but she didn't really entertain in her room because it was so perfect.
Yeah.
So we did not hang out there because we might have damaged the decor. Who knows? So Maggie and I were friends.
Let me ask you a question for a minute. Just
yeah, no, we can cut all this out.
Okay, why did you not receive massages?
I wouldn't have any control.
Oh, okay. What do you know what you worried about would happen?
Well, I was also incested, so yeah. I never thought of it. It was probably part of it. Yeah. Because I had no control over that.
Right. Okay.
Yeah.
You weren't afraid of lesbian tendencies rising to the peak.
Yeah. No, I didn't even know the word. Yeah. I just, from that first grade experience, that I should not talk about it.
Yeah.
And I knew that I was strongly attracted to girls.
Yeah.
And I wanted to have a best friend. But there I wanted to be a mutual seeking. Yeah. Mm-hmm. And for the most time it was.
Yeah.
Huh. So I didn't want to be alone either.
Yeah. So you've gotten as far as college.
Okay, so I'm in college, I'm in training, and there's girls everywhere, and we all had our own room and everything. So I made a group, probably like your group. I didn't make it, but you just created this. You congregated with the same group most of the time, and you rotated to different experiences together. So Maggie Maxwell was there, Stella, a very good friend, and other women, and we went to the Abbott Labs in Illinois. And Vi Miller, we'll X her name out of here, but I think she was probably lesbian. Anyway, took a rat from the labs and brought it back to the dorm because she couldn't stand the idea of these rats being killed for drugs.
Good for her.
I know. And she and the rat looked similar. She had her hair really tight and the rat was really pointed and she was pointed, and all the girls congregated in her room. But she got in trouble because she had a living thing that she stole from the Abbott Lab. So anyway, that was the first time I thought, she looks different than us, Vi. And she was nice. The other thing she did is, at that time, if you gave out a medication and the patient didn't want it, you didn't put it back in the bottle. You put it in your pocket. So Vi had a very large jar, glass jar. And we would all come and throw our opiates and everything else in her jar at the end of the day. Well, unfortunately, Vi overdosed. So she didn't kill herself, but that was probably the beginning of not allowing that policy to. But I mean, it was at that time we were so innocent. We just looked at those things as colorful. I mean, you should put all those capsules together. They have great color.
They do.
Now they're complaining about fentanyl being colorful, but we had colorful drugs for a long time, not just fentanyl.
As an aside, I just have to say I was on, I got put on Dupixent, and it came in this little thing that looked a little bit like it was like a little bullet. It was like this, and it was like yellow and kind of beige. It was like such a beautiful pill. I took it because I loved the look of it so much. Right. And then they changed it. And I'm still taking it, but I just hate, because I loved seeing that pill every day. And I was like,
I understand that.
Isn't it? But it's crazy, but it was still just an attractive, compact and sturdy and beautiful, tonal colors. It's crazy, but you're right. I mean, pills are attractive.
Right, especially in a glass jar.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, they're like jelly beans, but better.
And it was good to be able to go to Vi's room to dump them out by the day, because it would just mess up your own room. They'd get dirty. So she had this glass jar to protect them.
There's that element of me as a nurse who's like shocked. It's like, didn't they even have a jar at the hospital?
No. That's counter drugs and stuff. And some of those drugs, the patient didn't want them, you couldn't take it back. So what do you do with them? So anyway, that was, and at the end of training, I became friends with X-ray students, women X-ray students. And the one woman was confiding in me of experiences she had. And she was thrown out of school because of some strange activity. And I thought, I wonder what she did.
Yeah.
Well, I found out she was a lesbian. She let me know that. And so we engaged a little bit, really confiding in each other, you know, that bonding that girls do. But that sort of stopped. She had, I had a Chevrolet at that time. She had one too. And her key happened to fit my car. So, you know, and I got she was told me, I'm going to fall asleep on the back seat of your car, because I didn't want to go any further with her in terms of kissing or anything like that. And every night I would come out of the hospital and think, I wonder if she's in my back seat. Yeah, you know. Anyway, she finally just, I don't know where she is today, but
thank God for that.
But that was the first awareness of getting close to someone physically as well as, but not totally, just sort of touching stuff. And then I continued with the best friend thing. I finally got into a relationship. It didn't work, but I got, you know, it lasted about a year. And she was the one that I told you that wanted to be with men. So you suggested I give her my birth control pills, which was a good suggestion. I didn't. And so then I was in California. I came to California with my best friend from high school, Pat, and she was a teacher and I was a nurse, and we were on the way out of Chicago. And we lived together. She had a short career in teaching here because she'd made a commitment to teach in the government 6 months after we arrived here. And she made that before we came together. So I knew that she was going to be leaving and I'd have to find a place to live. So then I had various living spaces with various women, and they invited me to be part of their living. I think that communal living was partly popular for women and at that age group at that time. And so I said yes. I always had a job, but I didn't know where I was going to live because they'd get married. And so that shortened the roommate availability. I mean, it was really confusing. So after my relationship with the woman who decided to be with men, then I got into another relationship, and that person was a lesbian. This person was, she was the first woman I looked at and said, that's how lesbians supposed to look. Boots in the tight jeans, flannel. I mean, big belt. And I thought, wow. I remember being introduced to her and thinking, this is a lesbian.
It's funny.
And as you know, that person was Barbara.
I didn't know that.
And so he had a lot of issues, but she was a fine person in many ways. And she was out there. She was not afraid of, she was not homophobic, or so it didn't seem that way. And that was sort of good for me because I was still sort of concealed.
Yeah.
And so she was, you know, just a presence. And she was in the same profession as I was. So I thought that's good. I found out a lot of nurses were lesbians. That was fine. And so we stayed together for a while. But she was not a safe person emotionally for me to be involved with. However, I went to Chicago to visit my parents, and we'd been at odds, my mother and I especially, about my life. But she didn't really say specifically what she was unhappy with, but she was critical of me throughout my life. So she went and read notes that Barbara had left in my suitcase. But I don't even know what they said. But we had been, I thought, well, this is a good time. I went to see Kubler-Ross. I stayed with my parents for a week. I was educating myself. I was demonstrating that I could be on my own, blah, blah, blah. And at the airport, the O'Hare airport, my father drove me there with my mother. She handed me an envelope. And I said, this is probably her saying what a great week we'd had. We'd always been at odds before. And so I checked my bags and I opened the envelope. It was absolutely devastating because she told me that she was ashamed of me. I was not leading the life that she and God had planned for me. And it went on and on and on. So I knew she had raided my longings, intercepted notes. And it was awful. Yeah. At that time, there were no cell phones, so there was no way. They had several hours to drive back to their house. And I called Carol Duke. So we'll put her in here. She's now deceased, but she was a very important person in my life and others also. And she said, well, call her up. And I was sobbing, just, and I thought, okay, might as well confront it. We've been skirting around this thing for a long time, my mother and I. So anyway, I waited and I called her up. And the plane didn't, we were early, so the plane didn't, was still on the ground. And I asked her, I said, what did you mean by that? And she said, you know. And my mother was a convert through Catholicism to marry my father. And I thought, how does she know so much about God? She's a Methodist. Nothing really know. Yeah. I mean, and I never knew she was so attached to God. Yeah. She just did stuff because she had to. Yeah. Right. And so that added to the separation of my relationship with her. And I would say it really never got better. We tolerated each other. She was polite. She knew, she was nice to Marge. Nice is a strange word, but he tolerated her. Yeah. And my father did a lot better. But it was that after that, I was out. I had nothing more to hide. I was trying to protect them and myself from my sexuality. I, find Barbara wore the buckle on her belt and all this shit. It didn't, I wasn't, it was awful, such a violation. Yeah. And I thought, I'm so angry and hurt with this that I'm done hiding to make myself comfortable. I've been out ever since. Oh, yeah. So that's my story. Good story. The parental approval or disapproval is really a big part of our development. Yeah. Yeah, I'm sure I told you. I know.